The stars looked cold and empty in the border system. 200 warships floated in perfect formation, their dark hulls blocking the light from distant suns. Each ship was massive, covered in weapons and armor. Together, they formed the greatest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His 4 eyes scanned the tactical display with satisfaction. His gray skin stretched into what passed for a smile among his kind. They were tall creatures, with long limbs and sharp claws. They had conquered 12 star systems and crushed countless species beneath their power. Today, they would crush the humans. Admiral, one of his officers, called out, "We detect a ship entering the system. It appears to be human." Turned slowly. How many ships? The officer checked his readings twice before answering. His voice carried confusion. "One ship, Admiral, just one." A strange silence fell across the bridge, then began to laugh. It was a harsh sound like stones grinding together. His officers joined him, their laughter filling the command center. "One ship," repeated. "The humans send one ship against 200. They are either very stupid or very arrogant." The human vessel emerged from faster-than-light travel and slowed to a stop. It was called the UES Defiance, and it looked small against the vast fleet. The ship was sleek and gray, built for speed rather than raw power. Compared to the massive warships, it seemed like a toy. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Park Sun stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was a man of average height with short black hair that was turning gray at the temples. His face showed no fear as he watched the enemy fleet on the main screen. He had served Earth's Navy for 30 years, and he had seen many battles. But never anything like this. "Lieutenant, what are we looking at?" he asked calmly. Lieutenant worked at the tactical station, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. She was young, only 32, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. Her dark eyes narrowed as she studied the data. 200 warships, Captain. 40 heavy cruisers, 100 destroyers, 50 support vessels, and 10 carrier-class ships. Their flagship is directly ahead, twice the size of anything else in the fleet. Weapon status. All weapons charged and ready, sir, but if I may speak freely, she paused. Our weapons against their numbers. The math is not in our favor. Captain Park smiled slightly. The math never tells the whole story, Lieutenant. Open a channel to the flagship. Ensign Minu, the young communications officer, quickly established the connection. He was barely 25, fresh from the academy, but his hands were steady. "Channel open, Captain." The main screen flickered, and Admiral's face appeared. His 4 eyes studied Captain Park with obvious contempt. The alien's thin lips curled with amusement. "Human," said, "I am Admiral, Supreme Commander of the Dominion Fleet. You have entered restricted space with a single warship. This is either a brave act or a foolish one. I suspect it is both." Captain Park bowed his head slightly in greeting. "Admiral, I am Captain Park Sun of the United Earth ship Defiance. I come on behalf of the Earth government to request peaceful negotiations. We wish to discuss the blockade you have established and find a solution that benefits both our peoples." His laughter was immediate and cruel. Behind him, his officers joined in. "Peaceful negotiations. You soft, gravity-chained weaklings think you can negotiate with the... We have conquered species far stronger than yours. We have burned worlds that dared to oppose us. We are aware of your history, Admiral. That is why we seek peace. War benefits no one." "War benefits the strong," replied. "And they are very strong. Look around you, human, 200 ships against your one. Your species has expanded too far, too fast. You have taken systems that should belong to greater powers. Today, we correct that mistake." On the Defiance, the crew listened in silence. Some of them gripped their stations tightly. Others exchanged worried glances, but Captain Park remained calm. "Admiral, I must warn you. This ship is not an ordinary diplomatic vessel. We carry weapons that your people have never seen. If you attack us, you will regret it. I am offering you a chance to avoid bloodshed." Leaned forward, his four eyes blinking in sequence. "Are you threatening me, human? One ship threatens 200. He laughed again, louder this time. "Your species is known for your strange confidence. You come from a heavy planet where everything tries to kill you. You think this makes you special, but you are just meat. Soft, weak meat." "We are offering peace," Captain Park repeated. "And I am offering you 1 hour." His voice turned cold. "In 1 hour my fleet will open fire. You will surrender your ship and your crew will be taken as prisoners. If you refuse, we will destroy you and send your wreckage back to Earth as a message. 1 hour, human. Use it wisely." The screen went dark. Captain Park stood still for a long moment, staring at the empty screen. Then he turned to face his crew. They looked back at him with trust and determination. "You heard the Admiral," Park said. "We have 1 hour." Lieutenant spoke up. "Sir, should I prepare defensive measures?" "Not yet, Lieutenant. We will give them every chance to change their minds. That is the human way. We do not start wars, but we finish them." The crew nodded. They understood. Earth had sent them here knowing what might happen. The Defiance was not just a ship. It was a message, a warning. In the engine room, Chief Engineer checked his systems one more time. The weapons he had helped design were ready. They were terrible things, born from humanity's long history of war against itself and against the deadly planet they called home. On the flagship, Sub-Commander watched the lone human ship on his screen. He had studied humans for many years. He had read reports of their impossible survival, their strange determination, their refusal to accept defeat. Something about the human captain's calm voice troubled him. He approached Admiral carefully. "Admiral, perhaps we should consider the humans' warning. They would not send one ship without reason." Dismissed him with a wave of his clawed hand. "They sent one ship because they are weak. 1 hour, then we destroy them." Returned to his station, but he could not shake his worry. The humans had called their ship Defiance. He wondered if the name was a promise. Back on the Defiance, Lieutenant quietly activated her console. Her fingers entered a specific code. On her screen, 2 words appeared: Protocol. She looked at Captain Park. He gave her a small nod. Smiled. The hour began counting down. 30 minutes remained on the countdown. The fleet had not moved. They floated in space like patient predators waiting for the kill. On board their ships, crews prepared weapons and celebrated their coming victory. Some of them placed bets on how quickly the human vessel would be destroyed. On the bridge of the Defiance, the atmosphere was different. There was tension, yes, but also a strange calm. The crew moved with purpose, checking systems and preparing for what was to come. They had trained for this moment. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not return home. Captain Park's son stood near the main, watching the enemy fleet. His mind was clear and focused. He thought about his family back on Earth, his wife and 2 children. He thought about the billions of people counting on him and his crew. Then he pushed those thoughts aside. A captain could not afford distraction. "Ensign," he said, "open a channel to all ships. I want every vessel in that fleet to hear this message." Ensign Menu worked his console quickly. His young face showed determination, not fear. "Channel open, Captain. Broadcasting on all frequencies." Park stepped forward and straightened his uniform. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. "Attention, fleet. This is Captain Park's son of the UES Defiance. I am speaking to all of you, from the highest admiral to the lowest crew member. What I am about to tell you may save your lives." On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral looked up from his tactical display with annoyance. Around him, his officers stopped their work to listen. 30 minutes ago, your admiral gave us 1 hour to surrender. He believes this ship is a diplomatic vessel. He believes we are weak. He is wrong on both counts." Snorted with contempt, but did not cut the transmission. He wanted to hear what foolish words the human would speak. The Defiance is not a diplomatic ship. It is a weapons test bed. Earth sent us here because we carry technology that has never been used in combat, technology that your people cannot imagine. Across the fleet, officers exchanged glances. Some laughed nervously. Others felt a small chill run through them. "I know what you think of humans," Captain Park continued. "You call us soft. You call us weak. You say we come from a death world where everything tries to kill us, and you think this is a joke. But let me tell you what that death world taught us." He paused, letting his words sink in. "It taught us to survive. It taught us to fight against impossible odds. It taught us to build weapons that turn our weaknesses into strengths. Your species evolved on a gentle world with low gravity and calm weather. You have never faced the challenges that shaped humanity." On his own bridge, Sub-Commander listened with growing unease. He had read the reports about Earth, the massive predators, the violent storms, the earthquakes and volcanoes. The planet was a monster that constantly tried to kill everything living on it, and the humans had not just survived, they had thrived. "I am offering you one final chance," Captain Park said. "Turn your ships around. Leave this system. Tell your government that humans do not want war, but we will not accept surrender. We will fight, and if we must fight, we will win." Admiral had heard enough. He grabbed his communication device and spoke with anger in his voice. "Human, your words are empty threats. You have one ship, we have 200. No weapon in the galaxy can change those numbers. Your time grows short. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick." Captain Park's response was quiet but firm. "Admiral, I am trying to save your people. Please listen." "I am done listening." Cut the transmission and turned to his officers. "The human is desperate. He tries to frighten us with words because he has nothing else. Prepare all ships for attack. When the hour ends, we destroy them." The fleet began to power up their weapons. Energy signatures flared across the formation as hundreds of cannons charged to full power. On the Defiance, Lieutenant reported the enemy movements. "Captain, they are preparing to fire. All ships are arming weapons." "Understood," Park replied. He turned to his crew. "Status report all stations." Chief Engineer's voice came through the internal communication system. "Engine room ready, Captain. All systems at full power. Protocol is armed and waiting for your command." Pilot Officer Nam Sira gripped her controls tightly. She was a small woman with quick hands and quicker reflexes. "Helm ready, sir. I can dodge anything they throw at us." Medical Officer stood in the medical bay, surrounded by equipment and supplies. "Medical bay prepared for casualties, Captain. I hope we will not need it." "Thank you, Doctor," Park replied. "Let us hope so as well." He looked at the main screen one more time. 200 ships, thousands of enemy crew members. If the battle began, many of them would die. He had tried to prevent this. He had offered peace, but they had chosen war. "Lieutenant," he said softly, "what is the status of protocol?" Checked her displays. "All systems green, Captain, ready to activate on your command." Park nodded slowly. He thought about the weapon they carried. It was terrible. It was necessary. Earth scientists had worked for decades to create it, using knowledge gained from humanity's own violent history. They had hoped it would never be used. "Captain," Ensign Minu said suddenly, "I am picking up communications, internal messages between their ships." "Let me hear them." The bridge filled with alien voices. They were laughing. They were mocking the humans. They were already dividing up the salvage from the Defiance. Some were discussing what they would do with human prisoners. The crew of the Defiance listened in silence. Their faces hardened. On the Eternal Dominion, Sub-Commander made one last attempt. He approached Admiral with his data tablet. "Admiral, I have studied human technology. Their weapons development in the past century has been unlike anything in galactic history. They went from basic rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than 200 years. They are unpredictable. They are dangerous. Grabbed the tablet and threw it across the bridge. You are a coward. The humans are meat. Nothing more. Return to your station and prepare for battle. Lowered his head and obeyed. But as he walked back to his console, he quietly began calculating escape routes out of the system. The countdown reached 15 minutes. Captain Park took a deep breath. He had done everything he could. He had offered peace. He had given warnings. The had refused to listen. Now there was only one path forward. "Lieutenant," he said, "prepare all weapons. If they fire on us, we respond with everything we have." "Yes, Captain." Park turned to face his crew one final time. These brave men and women had followed him into certain danger. They deserved to know the truth. "What happens next will change the galaxy," he said. "We did not choose this fight, but we will not run from it. We are human. This is what we do." The crew nodded. They understood. Captain Park returned to his command chair and sat down. His voice was heavy with sadness when he spoke again. "We gave them a chance," he said quietly. "Lieutenant, show them what it can build when they are angry." His fingers moved across her console. Deep within the Defiance, weapon systems came fully online. Systems that would turn the cold equations of this battle upside down. The countdown continued. 10 minutes, 9, 8. The fleet had no idea what was coming. The hour ended. Admiral gave the order with a wave of his clawed hand. "Destroy them." 200 warships opened fire at once. The darkness of space lit up with death. Plasma beams cut through the void. Missiles launched by the thousand. Mass driver rounds accelerated to incredible speeds. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. All of it aimed at one ship. On the Defiance, alarms screamed. The main screen filled with incoming weapon signatures. It looked like a wall of fire rushing toward them. "Evasive action," Captain Park commanded. Pilot Officer Nam Sira was already moving. Her hands danced across the controls with impossible speed. The Defiance twisted and dove in ways that should have torn the ship apart. She pushed the engines beyond their limits, feeling the ship respond to her touch like a living thing. The first wave of weapons fire passed through empty space where the Defiance had been a moment before. Plasma beams missed by meters. Missiles exploded harmlessly. Mass driver rounds flew into the darkness. On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral stared at his tactical display in confusion. The human ship was still there. It was moving faster than any ship its size should move. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Adjust targeting and fire again." The fleet unleashed another massive barrage. Again, the Defiance danced through the storm of weapons. Nam Sira flew the ship through gaps that seemed too small to exist. She rolled, spun, and dove with perfect precision. Sweat ran down her face, but her hands never shook. "Return fire," Captain Park ordered. "Lieutenant, gravitational cannons." Press the firing controls. On the outside of the Defiance, strange weapons emerged from hidden panels. They did not look like normal cannons. They were covered in coils and emitted a deep humming sound that vibrated through space itself. The first shot was invisible. There was no beam of light, no explosion of energy. But a destroyer in the front line suddenly crumpled. Its hull collapsed inward like paper being crushed by a giant hand. The ship folded in on itself, crushing everything inside, then burst apart in a silent explosion. The fleet went silent on all channels. For 3 seconds, no one spoke. They had never seen anything like it. "What was that?" whispered. Fired again, and again. Each shot found a target. Each target died the same terrible death, crushed by forces they could not see or understand. In the first minute, 12 ships were destroyed. Captain Park opened a channel to the enemy fleet. "This is the power of gravity, Admiral. We come from a world where gravity is nearly twice what your species can survive. We learned to master it. We learned to weaponize it. These are gravitational pulse cannons. They create focused gravity wells that crush anything caught inside. You cannot block them. You cannot dodge them. On the Eternal Dominion, Sub-Commander watched in horror as ship after ship collapsed. His hands trembled over his console. The humans had turned gravity itself into a weapon. "Admiral," he called out urgently, "we must retreat. These weapons are beyond anything we can counter." Spun around, his four eyes blazing with fury. "No retreat. We outnumber them 200 to 1. All ships, concentrate fire on that vessel, destroy it." The fleet swarmed forward. They abandoned formation and charged toward the Defiance from all directions. Weapons fire filled space with deadly light. Namsira flew through the chaos with skill that amazed even her. She wove between plasma beams and twisted away from missiles. But there were too many enemies, firing too many weapons. The Defiance began to take hits. The ship shuddered as a plasma beam struck the port side. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. Another hit rocked the vessel from below. "Damage report," Captain Park called out. Chief Engineer's voice came through the communication system, strained but controlled. "Minor hull damage to port sections. Shields holding at 70%. We can take more, Captain." "Keep us alive, Pilot Nom. Lieutenant, keep firing." The gravitational cannons continued their deadly work. 20 ships destroyed. 30. 40. The fleet had never lost so many vessels so quickly. They had never faced an enemy who could kill them with such ease. But they still had numbers, and numbers were beginning to matter. A missile struck the Defiance's starboard engine. The ship lurched violently to one side. Warning lights flashed across every console. Namsira fought to keep the ship under control, her teeth clenched with effort. "Starboard engine at 60%, reported. "I can keep us moving, but we have lost some speed." Captain Park gripped his command chair. They had destroyed 40 enemy ships, but 160 remained. The gravitational cannons were powerful, but they could not fire fast enough to stop them all. "Captain," Lieutenant said quietly, "they have damaged our secondary systems. Should I activate the main weapon?" Park looked at the tactical display. Enemy ships surrounded them on all sides. Weapons fire came from every direction. The Defiance was holding, but it could not hold forever. They had one option left. "Admiral chose this," Park said. "He had every chance to withdraw. Lieutenant, activate protocol." Entered the activation code. Deep within the Defiance, something ancient and terrible came to life. The ship's lights flickered. A deep vibration ran through the hull, different from the engine sounds. It was the vibration of power beyond imagination. "Protocol active," announced. "Main weapon charging, 30 seconds to full power." On the Eternal Dominion, sensors detected an energy buildup from the human ship. The readings made no sense. They were impossible. The amount of power being generated was greater than the flagship's entire output. "What are they doing?" demanded. No one could answer him. Captain Park opened one more channel to the fleet. His voice was heavy with regret. "You called us weak. You called us soft prey. You laughed at our warnings. I want you to remember this moment, Admiral. I want you to remember that we offered you peace. Remember it when you tell your government what happened here today." The weapon finished charging. "Do it," Park ordered. "Press the firing control." Space itself seemed to scream. A point of absolute darkness appeared in the center of the formation. It was a singularity, a micro-black hole created by human science and human desperation. It lasted only 2 seconds, but in those 2 seconds it pulled everything nearby into its hungry darkness. 15 ships vanished. They were there one moment and gone the next, pulled into a point of infinite density, not destroyed, erased. The singularity collapsed, but the damage was done. The fleet scattered in panic. Discipline vanished. Ships fled in all directions, their crews screaming in terror. They had faced weapons that crushed them with gravity. Now they faced weapons that ate reality itself. Admiral stood frozen on his bridge. His four eyes were wide with something he had never felt before. "Fear. What are the humans?" he whispered. Sub-commander answered from his station, his voice barely audible. "They are, Admiral, and they are angry." The battle was far from over, but everything had changed. The fleet was breaking apart. Ships that had arrived with pride and confidence now fled in terror. The singularity weapon had lasted only seconds, but those seconds had shattered their courage. Captains abandoned formation. Crew members screamed at each other. The organized war machine had become a frightened mob. On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral watched his fleet crumble. His clawed hands gripped his command chair so hard that the metal bent. Shame and fury burned in his four eyes. The greatest fleet in history was running from a single ship. "Stop," he roared into his communication device. "All ships, hold your positions. Anyone who retreats will be executed for cowardice." His words had some effect. About 60 ships slowed their retreat and turned back toward the battle. The rest continued to flee, disappearing into faster-than-light travel without looking back. 140 ships gone in moments, destroyed or escaped. 60 remained. On the Defiance, the crew was fighting their own battle. The ship was badly damaged. Smoke filled the corridors. Sparks flew from broken systems. Every hit they had taken was showing its cost. Medical officer moved through the ship with steady hands and a calm voice. She bandaged wounds and treated burns. She gave medicine to ease pain. 3 crew members were dead and 12 more were injured, but those who could still fight returned to their stations. "How are we doing, Doctor?" Captain Park asked through the internal communication. Looked at the wounded crew member she was treating. He was young, barely 20 years old, with burns on his arms and face. Despite his injuries, he was trying to stand up and return to his post. "We are hurting, Captain," she replied honestly, "but we are not broken, not yet." Park nodded to himself. That was all he could ask for. "Lieutenant, status of the main weapon." Checked her displays. Her face was covered in sweat and small cuts from flying debris, but her hands were steady. "Singularity projector is recharging, Captain. We can fire again in 3 minutes." "What about the gravitational cannons?" "Operational, but their accuracy has dropped. We have lost some targeting sensors." Captain Park studied the tactical display. 60 enemy ships were still in the fight. They were regrouping, forming a new attack formation. Admiral was trying to restore order. "They are not giving up," Park said quietly. "The Admiral is too proud to admit defeat." "Then we make him admit it," Lieutenant replied. The Defiance moved forward. Namsira flew with one hand, her other arm wrapped in bandages from a cut she had received when her console exploded. But her flying was still perfect. She guided the ship toward the enemy formation. On the Eternal Dominion, Sub-Commander seized his chance. He approached 3 other officers he trusted and spoke quickly. "The Admiral is going to get us all killed. The human weapons are beyond anything we can fight. I am taking my squadron and leaving. Anyone who wants to live should follow me." 2 officers agreed. The third refused, loyal to the Admiral even in this disaster. Ran to the shuttle bay. Minutes later, he and 15 officers escaped on small ships, heading away from the battle at maximum speed. As he fled, recorded a message to be sent to the government. It warned them about the human weapons. It warned them not to make the same mistake twice. Admiral learned of the desertion and screamed with rage. But he could not chase them. He had bigger problems. The Defiance opened fire again. Gravitational cannons crushed 3 more ships. The formations broke apart as captains tried to avoid the invisible death. Some ships collided with each other in their panic. "All ships," commanded. "Attack together, surround them and fire everything. They cannot dodge all of us. The remaining ships formed a sphere around the Defiance. It was a desperate move, but it made sense. If they all fired from every direction at once, the human ship could not dodge. "They are surrounding us," Lieutenant reported. "I can see that," Captain Park replied. "Pilot Nam, what can you do?" Nam Sira studied the tactical display. Her eyes moved quickly, calculating angles and speeds. "Not enough room to dodge, Captain. They have us boxed in." "Then we do not dodge." Park stood up from his chair. "Lieutenant, fire the singularity weapon directly ahead. Make a hole in their formation. Pilot Nam, fly through it before the singularity collapses." "Captain, that is extremely dangerous," said. "Flying that close to a black hole, even a small one." "Do it." There was no hesitation. Fired the singularity projector. Nam Sira pushed the engines to their absolute limit. The Defiance shot forward like an arrow. The singularity appeared directly in front of them. 4 ships that had been blocking their path were pulled into darkness and ceased to exist. A hole opened in the enemy formation. The Defiance flew through it. The edge of the singularity's gravity pulled at the ship. Metal groaned. Systems screamed warnings. For one terrible moment, it felt like the ship would be torn apart. Then they were through. The singularity collapsed behind them. Captain Park allowed himself one small breath of relief. "Status." Chief Engineer's voice was strained. "We lost another engine. We are down to 40% thrust. Hull integrity is failing in sections 3 and 7. Captain, the ship is dying." "Can we keep fighting?" A long pause. "Yes, but not for much longer." Park turned to face the tactical display. 52 ships remained. They were damaged and disorganized, but they still outnumbered the Defiance 52-1. "Ensign," Park said, "open a channel to Earth. Tell them we are coming home, one way or another." Minu's fingers trembled as he sent the message. It was not a call for help. Earth was too far away to send rescue in time. It was a final report, a record of what they had done here. Medical officer continued her work in the medical bay. As she treated the wounded, she recited words her grandmother had taught her long ago. It was an old Korean poem about waves crashing against rocks. The rocks seemed weak, but they never broke. The waves seemed strong, but they always fell back. The wounded crew members listened. Some of them smiled. On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral felt something cold in his chest. He had lost over 140 ships. The human vessel was badly damaged, barely able to move. But it was still fighting. It refused to surrender. It refused to die. "What kind of creatures are these humans?" he asked no one in particular. An officer nearby answered quietly. "They are survivors, Admiral. That is what they do." Straightened his back. He had started this battle with pride. He would end it with pride even if it killed him. "All remaining ships," he announced. "We charge together. One final attack. We will destroy them or die trying." 52 warships turned toward the Defiance. Engines flared. Weapons charged. Captain Park saw them coming. He knew his ship could not survive another full assault, but he also knew that his crew would not run. "This is it," he said to his bridge. "Whatever happens next, I am proud of all of you. Earth will remember this day. The galaxy will remember this day." He sat back in his chair and faced the coming storm. "All weapons, prepare to fire. We take as many as we can with us." The final charge began. 52 warships charged toward the Defiance. Their weapons blazed with deadly fire. Plasma beams cut through space. Missiles flew in swarms. Mass driver rounds punched through the darkness. Admiral stood on his bridge, watching the attack with grim satisfaction. The human ship could not survive this. On the Defiance, alarms screamed without stopping. The ship shuddered with every hit. Fires broke out in multiple sections. Crew members fell at their stations, but they kept fighting. Lieutenant fired the gravitational cannons again and again. Each shot destroyed an enemy ship, but there were too many. The weapons could not fire fast enough. She watched her tactical display with fierce determination, refusing to give up. Singularity projector status, Captain Park demanded. Still recharging, Captain. 2 minutes. They did not have 2 minutes. A heavy plasma beam struck the Defiance's main hull. The ship rolled violently to one side. More systems failed. More warnings filled the air. Through the smoke and chaos, Captain Park saw the flagship growing larger on the main screen. The Eternal Dominion was leading the charge. Admiral wanted to deliver the killing blow himself. Captain, Pilot Officer Nam Sira said through gritted teeth, "We have lost main thrust. I can give you maneuvering only." "Hull integrity at 20%, Chief Engineer reported. "We cannot take much more." Park looked around his bridge. His crew was wounded, exhausted, and dying, but not one of them had asked to surrender. Not one of them had tried to run. They were human. They did not quit. An idea formed in his mind. It was desperate, it was probably suicide, but it might work. "Ensign," he said, "can you still broadcast?" "Yes, Captain, barely." "Good. I want you to send one last message to the fleet. Tell them," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "Tell them that humanity does not know how to surrender. Tell them that if we cannot win, we will make sure they never forget the price of fighting us." The message went out. On 52 ships, crew members heard it and felt something cold in their stomachs. "Lieutenant, how much charge does the Singularity projector have right now?" "Checked, 60%, Captain. Not enough for a full shot, maybe enough for something smaller." "Can you direct the charge into our reactor core?" The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what the captain was asking. If they fed the Singularity energy into the reactor, it would create an explosion unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Defiance would become a bomb. Met the captain's eyes. There was no fear in her face, only understanding. "Yes, Captain, I can do that." "Pilot Nam, can you get us to the flagship?" Nam Sira was already calculating. "If I use everything we have left, every last drop of fuel, I can get us there. We will hit them hard." Park nodded slowly. "Then that is what we will do. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for ramming speed. Get to the escape pods. You have 30 seconds." Throughout the Defiance, crew members moved quickly. Some ran toward escape pods. Others stayed at their stations, refusing to leave. Medical officer helped the wounded move as fast as they could. "Captain," she called through the communication system, "I have loaded everyone I can into the escape pods, but some crew members will not leave their posts." "I know," Park replied. "They made their choice, so did I." On the bridge, Lieutenant, Pilot Nam, Ensign, and 3 other officers remained with Captain Park. They would stay until the end. "Launch escape pods," Park ordered. 15 escape pods shot away from the Defiance, carrying 23 survivors toward safety. The small craft scattered in all directions, too small and too many for them to target. Admiral saw the escape pods launch and laughed. "They are abandoning ship. Victory is ours. All ships finish them." But the Defiance did not slow down. It did not try to flee. Instead, the damaged ship turned directly toward the Eternal Dominion and began to accelerate. "What are they doing?" demanded. Sub-Commander had warned him. The humans did not know how to give up. The humans always had one more trick. "They are going to ram us," an officer said in disbelief. "Destroy them now." Every ship fired at the charging Defiance. Plasma beams tore through the hull. Missiles exploded against the weakened armor. The ship was burning, dying, falling apart, but it kept coming. Lieutenant completed the final connection. The Singularity energy fed into the reactor core. Warning lights flashed red across every remaining system. The ship's computer screamed that destruction was imminent. Captain Park stood at the center of his ruined bridge. His uniform was torn and burned. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead, but he was smiling. "For Earth," he said quietly, "for humanity." The Defiant struck the Eternal Dominion at full speed. The impact alone would have been devastating, but combined with the modified reactor, combined with the singularity energy, the explosion was something new, something terrible. A flower of fire and gravity bloomed in space, swallowing both ships in an instant. Admiral had one moment to understand what was happening, one moment to feel fear. Then he and his flagship ceased to exist. The explosion caught 4 more ships that were too close. They died without even knowing what killed them. When the light faded, the Defiance was gone. The Eternal Dominion was gone. 47 ships remained. They stared at the empty space where their flagship had been. Their admiral was dead. Their fleet was shattered. They had come here with 200 ships to crush a single human vessel. Now they had nothing. Without orders, without coordination, the remaining ships fled. They jumped into faster-than-light travel and scattered across the galaxy, running from a battle that no longer existed. The human escape pods drifted in space. 23 survivors watched through small windows as their enemies disappeared. Some of them cried. Some of them cheered. Most of them just sat in silence, too exhausted to feel anything. Hours later, Earth rescue ships arrived. They collected the survivors and listened to their stories. They recorded everything: the battle, the weapons, the sacrifice. Captain Park's son was dead. So were Lieutenant Pilot Officer Nam Sira, Ensign Minu, and the others who had stayed aboard. They had given their lives to protect their home. But their sacrifice was not in vain. Far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched the recordings of the battle. Representatives from 100 species saw the fleet mock a single human ship. They saw that ship fight back. They saw it destroy over 150 warships before finally falling. The recordings spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species, every government, every military officer studied what had happened. They learned a new truth about humans. They had called them weak. They had called them soft prey. They had laughed at them. They were wrong. Months later, a new government sent diplomats to Earth. They came with peace offerings and apologies. They came to talk, not to fight. A human ambassador met with the diplomatic team. The aliens were polite and careful. They remembered what had happened to their fleet. One of the diplomats finally asked the question that had bothered them for months. "Why did your people send only one ship? Were you so confident you could win?" The human ambassador thought about Captain Park and his crew. She thought about the brave men and women who had volunteered for that mission, knowing they would probably die. She thought about what humanity had learned from their harsh, deadly home world. Then she smiled. "We only needed one." The diplomat had no response to that. Across the galaxy, species began to look at humans differently. They were not the soft, weak creatures many had believed. They were survivors. They were fighters. They came from a death world that had tried to kill them for millions of years, and they had conquered it. And now the galaxy knew the truth. You do not mock humans. You do not threaten their home. You do not underestimate them. Because if you do, they will remind you why they are still alive. The legend of the Defiance spread across the stars. It became a story that parents told their children, a warning that governments shared with their militaries, a reminder of what happens when you push humanity too far. One ship against 200. One crew against impossible odds. One final lesson for the galaxy. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not break. Humanity endures. And humanity wins.